Let's play a game of word association in advance of Liberation Day. I'll say a series of phrases, and you tell me who I'm describing. A loose cannon with half-baked ideas, like a mosquito at a nudist colony. And 3, I don't know anybody that's not pissed off at him. No, not Donald Trump, but you're close. And it's Howard Lutnick, our Commerce Secretary, who apparently it's now broken out into the open and made its way to the Rupert Murdoch-owned New York Post that the knives are out for Howard Lutnick if Liberation Day and the tariff war doesn't go as planned on Wednesday. May explain why the Trump administration grounded the Air Lutnick and didn't let him take to the airwaves this past weekend on the morning talk shows related to the Liberation Day. I'm Michael Popak, and you're here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Let's get into it. Howard Lutnick used to be, until his sons recently took over, used to be the head of an entity called Cantor Fitzgerald. You might know them because they were devastated during 9/11 with 658 people having lost their lives. And ever since then, Howard Lutnick has worked to rebuild this company. It's a relatively middling company. It's not one of your powerhouse Wall Street firms. And when Howard Lutnick got very, very close to Donald Trump, who's also not a superstar real estate developer, they have a lot in common that way, the two of them got together and said, hey, I want to be the head of your transition team. So the head of the transition team becomes Howard Lutnick, and then he fights to become Treasury Secretary. You know, the person in charge of all of our fiscal policy and has their name on the money. Well, there was a knife fight that broke out even then that we reported on, and he lost. And Scott Bessent, who was the head of an equity or hedge fund, he became Treasury Secretary. But Howard Lutnick got the consolation prize. You know, it's like kissing your sister at the prom or whatever that phrase is supposed to be. And he got to be the Commerce Secretary, you know, in charge of lots of things like the CHIP Act and commerce and the Patent and Trademark Office and other aspects of Donald Trump's plan, like the Postal Service, you know, that thing. And he came up apparently with the bright idea that we should enter into a tariff war, sitting around the table, to quote an insider of the Trump administration, giving and feeding Donald Trump half-baked ideas and crazy plans and pushing and pushing and pushing. Now, if you go back in time and you watched Howard Lutnick, you would only know him from CNBC and showing up on Maria Bartiromo and different places talking about his own company. He's a promoter of the first order. He would make P.T. Barnum blush, is what I'm trying to say. So when you have a person that's always promoting and putting all of his thought balloons into action by giving a 4-minute interview on CNBC and now put him in the Trump administration, what do you think is going to happen? Insiders are saying that he is on the short list, not to be elevated, not to be promoted, but to be shown the door, especially if as Wednesday goes as badly as the financial markets and the world economy is telling Donald Trump it's going to go. Why he needs to announce a new Office of External Revenue and to try to replace the trillions of dollars of lost tax dollars with, tariffs and other port fees and the like, I have no idea. First of all, let me explain the whole. To support Social Security, to support Medicare and Medicaid and veterans benefits and student loans and all the things that we rely on, that America relies on for their dignity, for their life, it cost about $5 trillion. So if you're the US government, you got to come up with $5 trillion year after year after year with cost of living increases. Where do you get that money from? Sure, you get a little bit from tariffs, you know, but you get most of it, 80% of it, 90% of it, from income tax, from the rich, from the wealthy, from businesses, from everybody. So you bring in about $5 trillion, you send out about $5 trillion. Now, Donald Trump jumping up and down with Elon Musk and this same Howard Lutnick, who at one time, I don't know if you remember this, he was the founder, the co-founder, along with Ramaswamy and Musk of Doge, right? Got to find money other places because we're going to get rid of the tax service. And so they came up with a plan to cut trillions of dollars from the federal budget. You're watching it in action now. Fire all of the federal workers. Close all the federal offices that matter to people and people's lives. Get rid of U.S. attorneys in the Department of Justice. Hollow out the FBI. Hollow out the Department of Education. Hollow out everything that matters to America. Hollow out Health and Human Services. You don't need it. An environment? It's overrated. We don't need it. Health? We don't need it. Get rid of it. Shrink the government down as small as you can to choke it and drown it in a bathtub. That's the goal. And then all the trillions we save, and we're looking at you, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, we're coming for you too. All that money that we save, we won't have to collect it in taxes. That doesn't work. And trying to replace the tariffs for income tax revenue is one of those half-baked crazy ideas that's being pushed apparently by somebody like Howard Lutnick. Okay? The most you're going to get in a tariff war, and a war is symmetrical, right? They do to you what you do to them, is, I don't know, 500 million, 800 million? I mean, economists differ, but they're all in that range. It's not even $1 trillion. Hey, look at me, Michael Popok here, and yes, I'm actually using iRestore's amazing elite hair growth device. And now you know one of my many personal grooming secrets to having great looking hair at 59. It's time to shake off the winter blues and get ready for a fresh start. This season, tackle thinning hair and hair loss with the iRestore Elite. It's a clinically proven solution designed to help you regrow hair with 282 lasers and LEDs delivering light therapy directly to your scalp. Think of it as a rejuvenating treatment for your hair follicles, giving you a new look for the spring season. Now that we're experiencing those in-between days, you know, when it's still chilly, but you're ready for a change, whether it's a rainy afternoon or a quiet evening indoors, the iRestore Elite is the perfect way to take care of your hair. Lightweight, hands-free, and painless. It works while you relax and prepare for the warmer days ahead. No hassle, just real results. For a limited time only, our listeners get $625 off their iRestore Elite when you use code LEGALAF at iRestoreLaser.com. That's $625 off your iRestore Elite at iRestoreLaser.com with promo code LEGALAF to get the hair regrowth device you've been wishing for and start feeling like yourself again. Listen, the iRestore Elite device is the best at-home laser device in the world. It has more lasers, LEDs, and power output than the competition, ensuring you'll see results wearing it. And maybe the best part about iRestore, they offer a 12-month money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. If your hair doesn't make a glorious return, you'll get a full refund, no awkward questions, just fabulous hair or your money back. Give yourself the gift of hair confidence this spring. For a limited time only, our listeners get $625 off their iRestore Elite when you use code LEGALAF at iRestoreLaser.com. That's $625 off your iRestore Elite at iRestoreLaser.com with promo code LEGALAF. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Hair loss is frustrating. You don't have to fight it alone, thanks to iRestore. So, how are you going to cut trillions? How are you going to fill the gap? Where are we going to get the extra $4 trillion from to pay America? Now, Donald Trump wants to remove America, the U.S., from the U.S. economy. Uncouple it and see what happens. That's another one of those, according to insiders, as reported by the New York Post, a Rupert Murdoch paper. You lose Rupert Murdoch-owned media as an insider of Trump, you're about dead. They didn't even run a nasty story on Mike Waltz, but they did here on Howard Lutnick, and he couldn't be reached for comment. That's no surprise. I am sure, mark my words, Lutnick was about to get on and had planned to be on, we know this, all of the Sunday morning talk shows. All of them. And Major Garrett actually came on the air and said on Sunday, we were going to have Howard Lutnick here, but he has declined our invitation. He's always open to come back to the show. Yeah, I'm sure he wanted to go on those shows. Somebody, and if I had to name names, Stephen Miller, who's basically the consigliere enforcer for Donald Trump, bad cop for Donald Trump, I think he grounded Howard Lutnick and said, you're not going on those shows. You're not going on those shows. I want to go on those shows. You're not going on those shows. Now, the few times they've trotted him out to try to push policy have gone terribly for him. Who can forget the clip of Howard Lutnick bragging about his 94-year-old grandmother getting or mother-in-law getting Social Security? Let's play that clip.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
To which I ask, why is she getting Social Security when her son-in-law is a multi-billionaire? We'll leave that for another day. But just to, in the 70 days of this administration, look what's happened. The transition was chaotic. The confirmation process was chaotic, and Matt Gaetz was a disaster pick. The intelligence transition was a disaster. And who's responsible for that? The head of the transition team, Howard Lutnick. He then knife fights with Musk and others, including Bessent, to try to get the job he really wants, the Treasury Secretary job. And then he comes in number 2. And then he decides, well, I'll make number 2 the best. He gets his wife, Allison Lutnick, on the Kennedy Center board, living the life. I'm sure he's got some sort of townhouse now in Georgetown or wherever they're living in D.C. And then on top of that, he starts taking to the airwaves. And you know how Donald Trump loves when somebody steals his thunder and takes his spotlight away from him. So mark my words. When Liberation Day goes awry, and we are liberated from our own U.S. economy, our wallets and our purses, because of this terrible, half-baked idea by the guy who's been described by insiders as like a mosquito at a nudist colony, and not in a good way. Or he's described as somebody that he's pissed off everyone that he's come in contact with, which is no surprise. If he survives, let's do the Deadpool right now. First cabinet member, I thought it was going to be Hegseth. First cabinet member to be nailed and shown the door and have to give a press conference or a speech where he says, I need to spend more time with my family, right? Is going to be Howard Lutnick. Let me just tell you, the writing is on the wall. When the White House doesn't even trot out Carolyn Levitt, sends out the number 2, the minor league spokesperson, Kush Desai, who says about this reporting, every member of the Trump administration is aligned on finally leveling the playing field for American industry and workers. I mean, leveling my bank account. Yeah, my stock account. Yeah, I see that. President Trump has assembled the best and brightest trade team in modern American history to reignite American greatness. And they are hard at work following the same playbook, President Trump's playbook, to deliver for the American people. Doesn't it sound like an 8th grade student council speech for somebody campaigning? And that sounds exactly like what the owner of a major league sports team says right before they fire the coach or the manager. I'm Michael Popak. I'm fired up. You're here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Follow me here. Follow me over on Legal AF, MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button there. Hit the subscribe button here on the MeidasTouch Network. Help it continue its march to 5 million, the drive for 5, over here on the MeidasTouch Network. And follow me on Legal AF, the podcast, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then I got a new podcast called Popak Live. You can see, you don't put baby in the corner. I'm unhinged. I'm unfiltered. I'm unscripted. Popak Live, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Legal AF YouTube channel. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popak. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.